What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Switching gears a little bit today. It's not a training video, which is crazy for me, but we're doing a full day of eating. So I feel like this is something that a lot of people always ask me about in terms of food intake or like what I'm eating or what they should eat. So I thought I would show you guys what I'm eating basically towards the back end of this build phase. So I'm on the highest calories that I've been throughout this entire sort of building phase or growth season. And then I start dieting in a few weeks. So I thought, what a better opportunity to show you guys exactly what 4,400 calories looks like. Because I think so many people are under the assumption that like you need to eat tons of junk food to hit that many calories, or you need to do stupid things, when in reality, you don't. And something that I'm really big on is prioritizing like nutrient quality over quantity. So really when we're in these build phases, like we don't need a huge surplus, first of all, but we also need to prioritize our health. And that includes eating lots of fruits and vegetables and things that are health promoting. And I think a big part of this too, something that I discussed on a podcast with my coach, Dean. So depending on when this video comes out, you guys will hopefully see that one. But looking at appetite, especially in the off season. So for someone who's got a pretty big appetite, they're training pretty hard. If we're looking at progression in the off season and their weight is moving, they're building muscle, their training performance is going up, they probably don't need any extra food. So as you get bigger and stronger and heavier, it's almost a case of like managing appetite even in these build phases. So ensuring that you're getting lots of fruits and vegetables and lots of high fiber, high volume foods in is really helpful. So enough of that. I'm gonna take you guys through my breakfast and I might talk you through exactly what we're doing and some fun tidbits along the way. So enjoy. All right, so meal number one, I have literally, I think, had the same breakfast for probably most of my life, which sounds so boring, but I think in terms of being a really high level bodybuilder and being very successful, it's kind of repetition, and you need to just do the same things over and over again, and arguably do the same things that yielded a great result for you over and over again. So for me, the sort of standard breakfast is always like an egg white omelet with some vegetables. That's shocking. With a bunch of vegetables, mainly because it's pretty filling. It's very high in protein. It gives me an opportunity to get lots of vegetables in there, which, you know, for me, I'm trying to hit at least, you know, close to a kilo of fruits and vegetables per day. But the big thing for me is when I start prep or when I start dieting, I don't have to like drastically change everything. So I can literally just eat the same meals, but just potentially reduce the quantity. And I think that's the trap a lot of people fall into, especially when they're like trying to play macro Tetris or trying to fit too many things into their calorie budget, is there's no consistency. So when they go to diet, it's really, you know, challenging to try and figure out what they should be eating, and their appetite gets all messed up. So for me, I know this sits really well, it digests properly, it's filling, and then all I need to do as I prep is potentially just pull out some carbohydrates from this meal to kind of, you know, meet my new calorie budget. Boom. One thing you guys will notice I'm so big on, and like I mentioned, is fruit and vegetable intake. So even in this meal on its own, I think I've got like 150 grams, maybe 200 grams of like vegetables, if we'll call it that, like spinach, mushrooms, tomato. No, tomato's a fruit. Someone's gonna get at me in the comments. But then separate to that, we've got it's about 150 grams of kiwi fruit and probably about 150 grams of strawberries. So in total, this meal is close to like 500 grams of, you know, fruits and vegetables combined. And I think as a bodybuilder, it's probably really naive to think that you don't need to eat fruits and vegetables. And this is something that I see all too often in bodybuilders, in clients, in potential clients who kind of bitch and complain about not liking fruits and vegetables so they don't eat them. And it's like, it's such an easy win to ensure that your health is maintained or at least improved by just eating some fruits and vegetables. And it's such an easy thing to do by literally just adding a little bit of extra fruit and veg to each meal. So as a idiot-proof target for all my clients and for anyone who watches any of my content is at an absolute minimum, you should be aiming for at least 500 grams of fruit and vegetables per day, but preferentially it should be 500 grams of fruit and vegetables per day. So close to a kilo of both combined. And that will really ensure that you're hitting all of your macronutrient targets and your health is prioritized, especially when you're looking at your blood panels. And number two, that your, diet is sufficient. So when we spoke about hunger and satiety, regardless of whether you're in a building phase or a cutting phase, you should be prioritizing those things so that when it comes time to either change that diet, all you need to do is probably pull out like actual carbohydrates, and the fruits and vegetables can stay there because that's the thing that's going to keep you fuller for longer. So for me, I've got like 4 slices of bread in this meal. All I do for my dieting phase is potentially just pull out 2 slices of bread, and I still keep everything else the same. And the rationale there is that there's not so many moving pieces that it gets confusing or kind of screws up with digestion or hunger or anything like that, to really just simplify this process. All right, so that is it for meal number 1. 4 slices of sourdough, bit of avocado, probably about 400 to 500 grams of fruit and vegetables combined, egg white omelet, 1 whole egg. And I'll throw the calories and macros up on the screen, but just having a look at MyFitnessPal, it's around 700, 750 calories, about 85 grams of carbs, 50 grams of protein, and about 18 grams of fat. So pretty easy win for breakfast. And I think it's an interesting point, something that I put up on my Instagram the other day about bread. And I think so many people are still under the misconception or under the assumption that you need to cut out bread to lose weight, like bread's some magical food that makes you hold on to body fat. When in reality, it's not. There are no foods that are inherently good or bad. I think there's just a time and a place for specific food based on your specific circumstances. So to put it in a nutshell, bread isn't bad. It's not bad for you at all. It's a carbohydrate source. And I think throughout the day, you should have a variety of carbohydrate sources in order to tick your carbohydrate box. Good way. Start to eat my pre-workout meal. All right, meal number 2. Finished up, some of my work for the morning. Jumping into meal 2, which is my pre-workout meal. So it's actually a little bit later than normal, but about midday. I have this one generally about sort of 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour before I go train. And this is the best pre-workout meal for me. I think this is a really tricky topic for most people, especially with clickbaity social media stuff. It's this is the best pre-workout meal. There is no best pre-workout meal. It's what's best for you. I know for me, this meal sits really well. It digests pretty quickly. It gives me all of the nutrients that I need in order to go and have a productive training session. But there are some general guidelines or general rules that we can follow in order to design a pretty good pre-workout meal, so long as it fits your needs. Number 1 being, it's probably lower in fat. So that's why I opt for chicken breast, lower in fat protein. We probably want some sort of higher glycemic index carbohydrate, like white rice. Again, white rice digests really well for me. It sits pretty nice in my stomach, so I can go train pretty close after I eat this meal. And then I've got some fruit. So pineapple being something that helps improve digestion. And if we know anything about carbohydrate sources or the way carbohydrates are metabolized, we kind of have a couple of main pathways. Generally looking at kind of glucose, fructose. One sort of resynthesizes muscle glycogen, one resynthesizes liver glucose a little bit better. So having a combination of both is pretty beneficial. And I think for me as well, pineapple's really nice with chicken and rice. So that is my pre-workout meal. Very, very simple, nothing fancy, and something that you could try if it fits your calories, your macros, and your circumstances. What meal is this? Meal 3, post-workout meal. So I just got back from the gym, had a back, pull and hamstring session. So this has been my typical post-workout meal throughout the entirety of this build phase or off season. And it kind of became one of those situations where in order to get extra food in, I needed to opt for something that was less nutrient dense and more calorie dense and potentially less volume as well. So I think a lot of people kind of have this assumption that, oh my God, cereal's so bad for you, or insert food is bad for you. When I think it's really context specific, and for this particular meal, it serves a particular purpose for me. It's my post-workout meal. It's super high glycemic index. It's super high in carbohydrates. It's got a very easily digestible protein source. And it's just a very easy meal to get down post-training. Like sitting here trying to eat like a hot bowl of like chicken and rice or something like that. Sure, fine. But it's just not very applicable to my situation, especially this meal. It's my biggest carb meal. So trying to get, 150 grams of carbs in post-workout, you kind of need to opt for stuff that's a lot easier to eat for, more calories really. So it's 125 grams of rice bubbles if you're in Australia, or, rice puffs or whatever you want to call it, depending on where you are in the world. Basically just a rice-based cereal. Banana, honey, blueberries, dates, and just some protein powder. And this has been a staple for me throughout this entirety of this off season, and will likely stay in play until I start dieting, and then I'll probably opt for something that's a little bit less, calorie dense, and hopefully a little bit more satiating. But this is hugely satiating, and I think in terms of like post-workout meals, arguably the best post-workout meal if you're in a calorie surplus and trying to build muscle. This is for all those ASMR freaks out there. Welcome back everyone to the kitchen for meal number 4. This is my dinner meal at about 5:30 p.m. So my second last meal. And generally I like to keep this pretty simple. At the moment, obviously in this build phase, carbs are pretty high. So I'm opting for rice again in this meal. Same as my pre-workout meal. Purely just because I can have, this is 125 grams of dry weight rice. So quite a lot of rice, but it's pretty easy digesting. It's not too, filling, like it's not, really high in fiber like potatoes or anything like that. And then I like to make it fresh every day. So I literally just make enough rice for those 2 meals. Makes it really easy for meal prep. And then we've got some steak. So generally rotating protein sources for this dinner meal. So it'll either be like chicken, steak, or fish, and put it with some sort of like side vegetable or salad. And again, because calories are really high, because food volume is really high, just purely from the amount of food I have to eat, just literally got like a rocket salad. And it's still a great way to get in some micronutrients, still a good way to get in some fiber, but again, it's not super voluminous, it's not super high in fiber, so it's not gonna be really hard to digest or get down. But easy meal, this is meal number 4. I'll show you guys meal number 5 before I go to bed. But I think at the moment we're probably at around 3,400 calories. So I'll throw up the calories and macros for this one, and then I'll throw up the calories and macros for the last meal and the daily total, so you guys can see exactly the breakdown for each meal and what 4,400 calories looks like on a daily basis. Welcome back to the kitchen, guys, for meal number 5. It is currently 8:11 p.m. So this is my last meal, my pre-bed meal. I'll smash this one and probably go to sleep. But it's probably my second biggest meal after my post-workout meal. I genuinely love having a big bowl of carbs before bed. Certainly helps me sleep better. And I'd argue that if you do struggle with sleep, having a big bowl of carbs before bed is certainly beneficial. But to wrap this one up, this is probably about 1,000 calories. It's my famous cream of rice bowl. If you haven't seen it, I think I've posted this on my YouTube, Instagram, TikTok about 1 million times, so go check it out. But it's just basically rice flour, protein powder, cooked in the microwave with a bunch of toppings. So with the extra calories, I've got some dark chocolate, I've got some honey, I've got some almond butter, some dates, and some blueberries mixed in there. So super high calories, super high carb, but very, very easy to digest. I was having oats before bed, but I was just finding oats a little bit too heavy on the guts. This obviously being rice, there's no fiber, so it certainly doesn't create too much of an issue eating this right before bed and going to sleep with a full stomach. But that is it, meal 5. I think, what are we, 4370 total for the day. 260 protein, 650 carb, and around 70 grams of fat to wrap this one up. So you guys saw all the meals. It's not overly complicated. It's not very fancy. And there's no real like junk food or shit food that you need to eat in order to bulk. You can eat pretty decent meals on high calories, and it's pretty easy to do. So that is it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you do have any questions, comments, or further videos that you want to see, leave me a comment below, and make sure you go do all that fun YouTube stuff, like, comment, share, subscribe, and until next time.